Uh-oh. The last cookie.
You can get a new box of cookies in as fast as an hour with Walmart Express Delivery.
Are you my guilty self-conscience?
No, I'm the voice offering you promo code EXPRESS for free delivery on your first order.
Hey, who ate my cookies?
You mean, these cookies?
Order now. Welcome to your Walmart. Promotion valid for first express delivery order. $50 minimum subject to availability. Restrictions apply.
Taking you behind the curtain. It's the Joan Hamburg Show. Talk Radio 77 WABC.
Welcome, everyone, to the Joan Hamburg Show. One of my favorite people. Unbelievable. And not only has he written his memoir, I Was Better Last Night, Harvey Fierstein. That's how his mother taught him to pronounce it. I could get them mixed up. His father called it Stein, I think. But Harvey, so many Tonys, who would have believed it? Torch Song Trilogy, he wrote Lacage, Kinky Boots. Oh, Harvey, I never even told you that my cousin Jackie, was the lyricist on Newsies.
Well, of course. I spoke to him just yesterday.
Yeah,
Jack Feldman.
Cousin
I speak to him
Jackie.
all the time. Cousin Jackie.
I love Cousin Jackie.
In fact, they did a 10th year anniversary concert on Monday at Feinstein's in the city, and Jack went to it.
Oh, I should have gone to that.
Oh, well, I'll yell at him and tell him to invite you next time.
Of course, invite the family.
Invite the family. Yeah, all the kids got together.
Yeah, I think that's great. And, you know, when you do a book like you did, which is no holds barred, and it really starts early on, it's exhausting, it's exhilarating, and for some people, it's so cathartic, they never have to see a shrink again. What happened to you, dear Harvey?
Well, I did an event yesterday at the New York Public Library on Fifth Avenue, and what was so wonderful was a lot of my school chums showed up. There was someone I haven't seen since his bar mitzvah. There was a couple of people I went to high school with. There were a couple of people I went to college with, and they're all coming, and they're talking about exactly that, how cathartic it was for them to read the book and relive those days in New York.
But your days, even starting as a kid, because you were certainly not, the big sports jock. You were a kid who did not conform from the start, got into community theater. I mean, it just doesn't happen like that. Meets Andy Warhol, is involved in the theater of the ridiculous.
Right.
Well, Mama, whole world.
My philosophy that has been developed over these many centuries of my being alive, my philosophy it seems to be that life is as interesting as the number of times you're brave enough to say yes. All day long we're living our lives, reading a newspaper or having coffee or whatever, and somebody will call up and say, hey, you want to go to the movies, or you want to go see this, or you want to go meet a friend of mine. And 99% of the time we say no because we've got our plan in place, and we're kind of lazy, and change is a hard thing for all of us to do. But the truth is, life does not get more exciting if you say no. It's only if you go out of your comfort zone, even in tiny ways, and say yes. I was in high school. I had no desire to be an actor, had no desire to be a writer. Somebody's mother was starting a community theater. She said, would you like to get some kids together to make posters down in the basement of a church? We went down there to do that, and my entire life changed. And I have lots of examples like that through my life. It's part of it's coincidence, part of it is just being in the right place at the right time, but most of it is about seizing opportunity and saying yes. And like I said, I'm not as brave as I used to be about saying yes, but I still try to.
How many more yeses? If you said more, you wouldn't even have time to go to sleep.
Well, it's true. At the moment, I've got Funny Girl in previews on Broadway, and we've got Kinky Boots casting for the Hollywood Bowl, and I'm on the tour with the book at the moment, and then there are people developing a television show for me at the moment, which I never believe that stuff will ever happen. I've had so many TV shows that never happened.
I know, but this one will now.
Well, who knows? But it doesn't even matter. The point is to live that adventure. The point isn't that something has to happen the way you think it's going to happen. The point is to live the adventure, learn what you can from it. You know, something else I always say is I'm not afraid of failure. I can survive failure. What I can't survive is not taking the chance. What I can't survive is the maybe I should have. You know what I mean? That regretful feeling is what never goes away and always stays negative in your life. But failure over time becomes kind of funny, you know? I think
you learn to step over it too.
Well, you have to.
But you did. And even, Harvey spares nothing in this memoir, which I literally couldn't put down. I was better last night. But part of it, I thought, as I'm reading, even though for your parents, it was really a tough journey. You know, their eccentric son who wanted to wear his mother's clothes and the whole thing. But they, in their own ways, they accepted you and loved you so much that
exactly
that was a gift where you could survive a lot of stuff that kids couldn't.
My father's mother died in childbirth. He lived in Ellenville, New York, you know, in the Catskills.
Upstate, right.
And so his father was the town barber, and they put him in an orphanage as a baby. And he was raised in an orphanage until he was 13, which, of course, is the Jewish age of manhood. And at 13, they gave him the keys to a truck, and he became the delivery guy for the bakery, for the local bakery. And he was an adult. So he always had a want for family and a great respect for family since he didn't have the family he wanted. And so we were raised, my brother and I were raised, that in the house we could get yelled at, but outside in the world, the family would always stick together and the family would always take care of one another. And so that was how we were raised and why we had that sort of, no matter how nuts my life looked, the rules were set that they were going to back me up. And they did. And they were there. Yeah.
And your mom, the scene in the book when everyone's sitting around a pool and there you are like a mermaid in the pool, you know, one of your fantasies, and your mother sort of, everyone's watching, not knowing how to deal with it, says, look at him, he swims like a fish. And it got her by, and it got you by too, and you had a brother who was a traditional kid, but was always there for you.
Well, the two of us, you know, it's funny, as kids, you know, in a Jewish family, we were nicknamed when we were babies almost. My brother was going to be the doctor, and I was going to be the lawyer. He was going to be the doctor because he was good at science in school, and I was going to be the lawyer because I never shut up. And as we grew up, we sort of grew up in that mold. Well, my brother stuck to that path until he found himself pre-med in college when he suddenly woke up and said, what am I doing? I don't want to be a doctor. So he ended up getting a rock and roll band together and you know, going through his path, which eventually led to him becoming a lawyer. And I was never going to be a lawyer. I just followed my path to be an artist, and that's the way it turned out.
Right, and you found a community early on,
yes,
enough to give you support to get through a lot of the terrible times. When I read the book, and I have so many friends who died during that hideous period of AIDS, and it was devastating, but
Right.
you were literally in the midst of it. And I don't know how you got through that even after reading everything.
Well, the thing is that the AIDS period, I think we just battled through and we battled through and we battled through. And then when it was sort of over, which of course it really isn't over. People are on drugs now, but there's no cure. There are drugs, to keep you well, but there's still no cure. But once we got through the part where we were losing people on a daily basis, I think I went into a bad depression.
Yeah.
I think I just finally collapsed into a bad depression. I began drinking, and that led to a kind of dark period in my life. But from the darkness, again, comes light. And, thankfully with the help of friends and community, here I am, renewed.
Right. And that wasn't easy. All that Southern comfort.
Well, that's Southern comfort.
That sweet drink, which...
Well, because I really hated alcohol, Joan. I didn't like alcohol. I just wanted that numb feeling. And so Southern Comfort was very sweet. I drank 100 proof Southern Comfort. At the worst of my drinking, I was downing half a gallon a day.
Oh.
Which is absolutely absurd, and it nearly killed me. I mean, it nearly killed me. But thankfully, here I am.
But right, thankfully for you and thankfully for all of us. But your journey, even when Torch Song Trilogy became such a big hit, and I know people talk about it, but I love reading about it, when you could afford to buy rubber bands because you were living on nothing.
Right.
And you would pick up rubber bands to hold all your pages together. You'd pick them up off the street.
I know it actually was a moment in my life when I realized I was no longer completely poor. When I went into a little bodega and bought a plastic bag of rubber bands. And I said, if you have money to buy rubber bands, you must be doing okay.
Amazing, right? And Harvey, so much fun. I saw Matthew Broderick the other day on Broadway, and I kept thinking, having finished your book at that point, of this kid who wandered into your casting, I think.
Right.
Was that Torch Song?
Yes,
and
he was.
There was Matthew with a runny nose, like a kid.
Right. Well, it was his first job. He was 18 years old. He came in with his bicycle. I had no idea who he was. I didn't know. I mean, I knew who his father was, but I didn't realize that they were related. It was just a kid auditioning. There was no, he was not Matthew Broderick, obviously. He was just a kid auditioning. But he came in. He had so much personality. He was so much himself. And he read with Estelle Getty. They auditioned.
Whom you discovered, really.
Right, in Bayside, Queens. And the two of them read together, and Estelle turned to him and said, you're not going to be a kid forever. She was so tough on him. But he was adorable, and we cast him as my son. And then years later, of course, when we made the movie, he was too old to play my son, so he played my boyfriend.
That's so funny. I know. I'm sure he got a big kick out of reading that too.
Well, I don't know. I don't even know if he's read the book yet. I sent him the book. I sent Sarah Jessica Parker the book as well, because I know how lazy he can be. So I figured maybe Sarah will make him read the book, or she'll read him the good parts.
Exactly. He can even be lazy.
Yeah, I haven't gotten down to see them yet, but But the two of us are doing. Sarah, one of Sarah's best friends is Andy Cohen. He has that show, Watch What Happens on TV. Of course. And Matthew and I are doing that show together in a couple of weeks, so I'll be able to question him.
Such a good time.
Yeah, we always do whenever we get together.
when the book was all finished and you've been going on tour, and I'm sure it gets a little exhausting, to repeat the same stuff over and over again. But do you feel like now you really know who you are? I always thought you knew who you were from the beginning, even with all the problems.
I think it's very funny what writing a memoir does for you. In a funny way, it gets all those things, all the little shadows out of the dark corners, because you put them down on paper, so they're not scary anymore. There's nothing lurking in a dark corner. Nobody's going to discover something about you because you've already said it. And so it loses its power to be scary to you anymore. But it also, it was a lovely feeling to finish the book. But the funny part is, when you're done writing the book, you can't turn off that faucet. The memories keep coming. It's like, and now I should write this story, and I should tell this story, and I should tell this story. Because even at 400 pages, I'm going to be 70 years old in a couple of weeks. I got a lot of stories. And
that's book number 2.
Well, I figured give myself a year or two off, and then maybe I'll hit the computer again. I have a bunch of other things I want to write in the meantime, but I'm so proud of this book. I'm proud that I got it done. First of all, I'm proud
a deal.
And to have Knopf be my publisher is outstanding. And I have a wonderful editor there, Peter Gathers, who is just absolutely terrific. And then to have it come out and be a New York Times bestseller, that was like, wow. It just blew me away.
No, and of all the things you've done, and, you portrayed that when Torch Song, even the rubber bands, when suddenly it was okay, it was official, you were really on top of your game. But to see this book with everything is really unbelievable. I was thinking maybe the next one you could do a play with you. You did it, but now a new version of you.
Right. Well, there's I actually have already been offered a Broadway theater. Jordan Roth, the wonderful head of Jujamson Theaters, he called me up and said, "I'm so crazy about your book. Won't you consider doing a show based on the book? Telling stories from the book, maybe adding in a couple of songs from the different shows." And I said, I definitely will think about it. I'll start thinking about it over the summer once I finish the book tour. But it's wonderful that those stories have so touched people. But I do want to do it right. You want to get something like that right.
No, but the book even has it right, and you're going to get it more right because you're a storyteller, and you're funny. There's so much humor in the book, too. I remember, you won't remember this, Harvey. It goes back a zillion years. I was doing the show in Connecticut, not far from where you live.
I just drove past that building, Joan. I just had to go to the showroom, the lighting showroom, to try and pick out an outdoor light fixture. I knew I had to come home and talk to you. And as I'm driving, I drove past that building where you did the live broadcast.
Remember?
From that barn. Of course I do.
But then the funny thing was, when I said, "Harvey, where do you live?" and you said, "You'll know because I had to put up an American flag." I said, "Why?" You said, "You're in this little town. They never saw a Jew before. So I knew if I put up an American flag, they'd think I was one of them."
But that's a lot of years ago. I've been here. I've been in this town now. Oh my gosh! I moved in '84. So what is that? That's 38 years. Yeah, right. I've been here a long time. So I think they figured out I live here now.
That's right, with or without the flag.
I've lived here longer than most of my neighbors. So yeah. But
with or without what's going on, and everything exciting, and the book to read about what downtown New York was like from someone who really lived it, to go with you to Ted Hook's backstage. And in those days, he was a personal assistant to stars that we'd read about in movie magazines.
Tallulah
Joan Blondell,
Bankhead.
Tallulah
Right.
Bankhead, all the greats. I mean, those are adventures no one can have except for you.
In fact, I have. Ted got it for me before he passed. A Grandma Moses that Tallulah Bankhead bought from Grandma Moses. She was one of the people who discovered Grandma Moses, and I have one of the Grandma Moses paintings that Tallulah Bankhead bought directly from her.
Wonderful. How great.
Which always reminds
Harvey,
me of Ted.
It's a wonderful ride, and I love that it's going stronger, bigger, and better than ever.
But you know what? But I got to tell you one thing about the book title. I Was Better Last Night. I originally thought of that as the best thing you could put on a gravestone. I was better last night. Truer words were never spoken.
Oh, my gosh, that was funny. But, hey, you're here. You're not in a rush to go anywhere. You got a whole lot of fears. You're going nowhere, honey.
You and I are riding this pony for a while longer.
Why not?
Why not?
I always say, when people say, do you ever get depressed because of the pandemic? I say, you know what? I don't want to miss a meal. So we're hanging on.
All right. Well, give my love to Johnny for me and
Thank
Lisa
you,
and everybody. And it was a pleasure, as always, to talk to you.
We'll see you soon. All the best,
Bye,
Harvey.
Joan, my love. Bye.
To more. I'm Joan Hamburg. That was Harvey Fierstein. It was better. I was better last night. And we're going to come up to much more right here on WABC. Stay tuned.